Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you who are seasoned veterans of what we do around here. This is a continuation of our Tuesday Night Titans review series, and we are going into the March 15th episode. So we're a couple weeks away from the first WrestleMania, which is obviously a historic event for numerous reasons. We wouldn't be headed towards WrestleMania 37 without the first one, right? And this is a really interesting time. If you weren't a fan at the time, I wasn't a fan until 4 years later. So going back and watching this, I actually am enjoying the build. I'll actually enjoy watching the build to the first 4 WrestleManias over the review process because I wasn't around for those. for those. Anyway, we open with Bobby Heenan. He is promising victory for Big John Studd. By this point, he and Studd have put up $15,000 of valuable money, and they are wanting Andre to put up something. Heenan basically, he's tired of being called a weasel. He believes Studd to be the true giant. It's interesting to me that there were several iterations. I think this is actually the third go-around for Studd and Andre. I'm pretty sure they did battle the first time through in the 70s, then definitely here in 84 and again in 89. So think about that. And the stories from all sides is that Andre was not a fan of John Studd's. Andre really wasn't a fan of many big men. I do know he had some good relationships with bigger guys, but I think at some level he wanted to protect the giant aura, so to speak, and he certainly couldn't do so with Studd. But Heenan is gold here. I love Bobby, and I've mentioned before, Bobby's the reason I got into broadcasting. Bobby's the reason this channel exists. Bobby's the reason I went into play-by-play for a dozen years. Bobby probably is the reason I speak for a living in my real-life jobs. He's phenomenal, and anybody who isn't familiar with the work of Bobby Heenan, if you came in after he passed away, or if you came in late and only saw his WCW work, go back and study the work of Bobby Heenan for comedic timing as well as just how to tell a story. I don't think there's anybody better in entertainment that probably doesn't get the due he's worth or deserves. Anyway, we go back to the match of Studd and Patera versus Andre and SD Jones. That match, finally, we learned the date on it is December 1st, 1984. So think about it. The build for Studd and Andre, which is probably match number 2 or 3 on the card, and I struggle with, does 2 belong to, well, 2 probably belongs to Wendy Richter and Leilani Kai. At least that's what I'm thinking. The women's match, the Rock and Wrestling Connection piece, and then is 3 the tag team championships, or is 3 Studd and Andre. I'd actually be interested, for those that were around at that point, what was presented as the top of the card at the time. I know here they're really pushing the Andre thing. Of course, Andre agrees to put up his career. I believe it's in the next show or the show after. I know he does that right before going into the WrestleMania process. He takes time off here to do some acting. I think 86 is when he films Princess Bride. I know he has back surgery in 86 and that limits him coming back, but there's a lot going on. Andre certainly has slowed down by this point, which if you've never seen early Andre, 70s through, I don't know, maybe 81, 82, because, well, it actually had to be 70s, because 81 or 82 he breaks his ankle with Killer Khan, so even then, or that's how they played it, he actually broke his ankle getting out of bed. Giantism, a heck of a disease. Anyhow, but at this point, certainly, they're really pushing this match. Again, they show the match that's we've already talked about in other deviations of this pros. And ultimately, I mean, showing it again drives home the importance of the match. and still that line, "They've raped the dignity of a giant," is just it's iconic. It's memorable. Anyway, so Stud calls out Andrea, his name for Andre, and says he'll put up the money and no one will slam him, and he couldn't. Andre can't slam him, and no one can do it, and they make a big deal. They go back to the review of Andre and not Andre, Ken Patera and Heenan and Stud cutting the hair of a local stagehand or whomever. That's a big deal. We go back and they interview again. Heenan describes the bounty that he's putting on the head of Andre the Giant. Basically saying, he should put up his career. That's the challenge. He'll pay anybody a bunch of money to take Andre out. I think at a point this raises. It's later in '85, maybe into '86, but I think originally, or not originally, but eventually Heenan gets up to putting up something like $50,000 on the head of Andre the Giant. But that's post WrestleMania 1. At this point, though, there's $15,000 on the line, and think about this, that's $15,000 in 1985 money, not that it's actually changing hands, but still, $15,000 in 1985 is more than a year's salary for the average person. Heck, that's more than a upper middle class person might have been making at the time. Anyway, so Hogan discusses training with Mr. T up next. He makes a comment that just is believable at the time if you buy Mr. T. Of course, Mr. T gets his break in Rocky 3 alongside Hogan, who does the Thunder Lips thing. But and then that leads to the A-Team and so many other things for Mr. T. But Hogan says that in the last week and a half, Mr. T has taken out 11 training partners, and they show T in the ring knocking another guy out, and it's just, if he's that lethal, why the heck is he getting involved in wrestling? Why isn't he going after the boxing championship of the world? Like, hello. At some point, there's hype and then there's overhype, and I'm sorry, but I think at times they overhyped Mr. T just a little lot along this process. I mean, I get why they did it, but still. Wendy Richter discusses being the former ladies champion. She, of course, dropping the championship to Leilani Kai. It's interesting to me that they set up WrestleMania 1, if you think about it, all within about a 6-month span. The U.S. Express wins the championships from Murdoch and Adonis, and Wendy Richter picks up the belt and then drops it to Leilani Kai. And then you've got Greg Valentine as your Intercontinental Champion after Steamboat having held it for a good bit of time. And it's just interesting that it really feels like they had set up feuds to culminate at WrestleMania 1 in great part before the feud even started. It's an interesting process there. And I'm kind of curious about that. We see the Soothsayer back again. That's certainly an interesting process. That's there. We then see Fred Blassie still insulting Captain Lou Albano. This at the point kind of is getting a little bit, I don't want to say old, but it's kind of getting a little bit redundant in that, Blassie and Albano are not going to have a match. They're not really going to manage. Well, they do manage against each other, I guess, because of the tie-in with Sheik and Volkov having Blassie and Albano being alongside the U.S. Express. But they really don't do a lot with it, and it seems like overkill at the time because you don't see a lot of heel stuff. Then we see the main match clipped here, and of course that is the Volkov and Sheik versus U.S. Express match. That's leading into, and they burn the eye with a cigar. I think in this match, of Barry Windham, And, I mean, that's to set up the WrestleMania match. They also guarantee victory here in a post match interview. That puts heat behind this match in ways that it wasn't there before. You got to remember, at this point, the tag teams are shifting so much talent's coming in '85. That really continues through about '87. There's a 3-year period of '84 through '87 where the territories get raided really, it starts in '83, but most of the time, I think Steam has picked up behind the brand by '84. In '84 through '87, you really see everyone who is someone with a few minor exceptions coming in, and it's just interesting to me that people from different territories and people who come together who have been on top in other territories really were placed in positions of authority in the New York territory, all with the idea of expanding into other territory boundaries and all that. JYD being in his position, and then later Ted DiBiase in '87 gives them a chance to go into the Mid-South territory. Jim Brunzell, Jesse Ventura, and Hulk Hogan give them the chance to go in the AWA territory. It's just interesting how, and the Hearts and the Bulldogs, and that, gives them that chance. I wonder, and maybe someone can speak to this, I don't think it was done, but I would be curious to know, did Vince ever try to get Jerry Lawler in in this time? Obviously, Lawler and Jarrett are running the CWA at the time, which later becomes the USWA and whatnot. But I really wonder, did Vince make a play for Jerry Lawler to get that Memphis tie-in? Did he make a play for the Von Erichs to get the Texas tie-in? These are just things that I'm specifically meaning, let's say from 1983, let's say the end of '83 through WrestleMania 1, were there attempts, serious attempts, not just conversations, but serious attempts to bring in one of the Von Erichs or to bring in Jerry Lawler? That intrigues me. Anybody who knows the answer to that, who is more learned than I, if you could comment below, I'd enjoy that. But overall, this is a relatively eventful, with the U.S. Express and Volkov Sheik match, and certainly with the hype for the women's championship match. Eventful card, worth checking out in any event. This has been another one of the TNT reviews. We're going to get through TNT, then we're going to check out Saturday night's main event. So join us for the journey. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.